My name is Sloan Merrick. I'm 29 years old, and I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. When your mother chooses your sister's lie over your truth, it doesn't just hurt. It rewrites every memory you thought was real. Every childhood moment, every birthday, every time she said, "I love you both the same," all of it becomes suspect. And the worst part? You start questioning if maybe, just maybe, you really are the problem they say you are. That doubt almost destroyed me. Almost. But here's what my mother didn't know. That night she kicked me out in my bare feet at 10:47 p.m., while my sister sobbed her rehearsed tears in the kitchen. Someone was watching. Someone had been watching for months. And someone had proof of everything. Before I go on, if this story hits home for you, if you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do while the real culprit played victim, take a moment to like this video and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I read every single one. Now let me take you back to that night. The night everything shattered and rebuilt itself in the same breath. I need you to understand my sister first, not the version my mother sees. The real one. Tessa is 26, 3 years younger than me, and she's been beautiful her entire life. The kind of beautiful that makes strangers stop my mother at the grocery store to say, "Is that your daughter? She could be a model." And my mother would beam and say, "Yes, this is Tessa," like she'd personally sculpted her face. I was standing right there, every time. By the time Tessa was 12, she'd figured out something crucial. Tears are currency. Real ones, fake ones, it didn't matter. What mattered was that Mom would pay any price to make them stop. I remember the first time I saw her do it consciously. We were in 8th and 11th grade. She wanted to borrow my new sweater for a party. I said no because she'd ruined my last 2 sweaters by accidentally spilling things on them. She waited until Mom got home from work, went into the bathroom, pinched her cheeks until they were red, and came out with wet eyes. Sloan said I'm too fat to wear her clothes. I never said that. Not even close. But my mother looked at me, looked at Tessa's trembling lip, and said, "Just let her borrow the sweater, Sloan. Why do you always have to make everything difficult?" I gave her the sweater, so she returned it with a wine stain down the front. When I got upset, my mother said, "It was an accident. Why are you being so dramatic?" That was the pattern. Tessa wanted something. I said no. She cried. Mom made me give in. I got angry. Mom called me dramatic. For 17 years, that was my role. The difficult one. The jealous one. The one who just can't be happy for her sister. I thought if I just kept my head down, worked hard, built my own life, eventually Mom would see me clearly. I was wrong about that. I'm a high school English teacher now. I have my own apartment in the same town where I grew up, 10 minutes from my mother's house. I see students every day who remind me of young Tessa, the ones who've learned that playing victim is easier than being honest. I try to teach them something different. I try to show them that your character is built in the moments when no one's watching. The irony isn't lost on me. 3 months ago, Tessa got engaged to a guy named Dashiell. He's 31, works in finance, drives a Tesla, and looks exactly like the kind of guy Tessa would choose. Tall, successful, good on paper. I met him twice. Both times he talked about his gym routine and his investment portfolio. Both times Tessa gazed at him like he'd hung the moon specifically for her. My mother was ecstatic. She threw an engagement announcement party at her house with 40 people. Champagne, caterers, a custom cake with their names in gold frosting. I came to the party because not coming would have been a whole other issue. I wore a nice dress. I brought a gift. I smiled. When Mom asked me to give a toast, I stood up and said, "To Tessa and Dashiell, may you have all the happiness you deserve." Everyone clinked glasses. I meant every word exactly how it sounded. After the party, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "That was a beautiful toast, honey. I know you and Tessa have had your differences, but I'm so glad you're being mature about this." I wanted to ask what differences meant. I wanted to know if she remembered any of the specifics, or if it was all just a vague sense that I was the problem. But I didn't. I just smiled and said, Of course, Mom. I'm happy for her. That was a lie. I wasn't happy for her. I was neutral. Neutrality was the best I could do. What I didn't know was that my neutrality drove Tessa insane. See, Tessa doesn't just want success. She wants witnesses to her success. She wants reactions. She wants me specifically to be jealous, because my jealousy would confirm that she won, and I wasn't giving her that. So she decided to manufacture it. The engagement dinner was scheduled for a Friday night, 3 months after the proposal. 30 people. Family, close friends, Dashiell's parents, some people from Mom's church. Mom had been planning it for weeks. She posted about it on Facebook every other day. Can't wait to celebrate love and family unity. Family unity. That phrase made my stomach turn every time I read it. The day before the dinner, Tessa called me. Sloan, can you come over to Mom's tonight? I need help with something for the party. I should have known better. But I went. I showed up at 7:30 p.m. Mom was still at her book club. The house was quiet. Tessa was in the kitchen, pulling serving platters out of the cabinet. Thanks for coming, she said. She was wearing leggings and an oversized sweater, hair in a messy bun. She looked relaxed, almost sisterly. I let my guard down. No problem. What do you need help with? She turned to me, leaned against the counter. Actually, I wanted to talk to you. Okay. Are you seeing anyone? The question surprised me. No? Why? She shrugged, trying to look casual. Just wondering. Mom mentioned you've been single for a while. My chest tightened. Mom talks about my dating life? Not in a bad way. Tessa smiled. She's just worried about you. She thinks maybe you're too focused on work. I'm fine, Tessa. I know. She walked over to the sink, poured herself a glass of water. I just think it's sad, that you're going to be at my engagement dinner alone, while I'm there with Dashiell and all our couple friends, and you're just by yourself. I stared at her. Are you trying to hurt my feelings right now? No. God, Sloan, I'm trying to be nice. I'm saying maybe you should bring a date. I don't want you to feel left out. I don't feel left out. You sure? She tilted her head. Because Mom said you've been kind of bitter lately. My pulse spiked. Bitter about what? About me, about the engagement. She said you made a weird toast at the announcement party. It wasn't weird. May you have all the happiness you deserve? Tessa raised her eyebrows. Come on, Sloan. Everyone noticed. I took a breath, forced calm. Tessa, I'm not jealous of you. I'm not bitter. I'm just living my life. Right. She set her glass down. That's what you tell yourself. Excuse me? She turned to me fully now, arms crossed. You've always been jealous of me. Since we were kids. You just hide it better now. My hands curled into fists at my sides. That's not true. Sure it is. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You're jealous that I'm prettier, that I got engaged first, that Mom and I are close and you're always on the outside. You can't stand it. Tessa. And you know what the worst part is? She stepped closer. Her voice dropped low, almost intimate, like she was sharing a secret. Mom knows it too. She told me last week that you're still single because you're difficult, that men can sense it. The words hit like a slap. I should have walked out. I should have grabbed my keys and left and never come back. But I didn't. Instead, I laughed. It came out sharp, almost hysterical, because the accusation was so absurd, so perfectly Tessa, that I couldn't help it. Are you serious right now? Why are you laughing? Because this is insane. You asked me to come over here just to tell me I'm a bitter, difficult, jealous, and that's when she did it. She pulled her right hand back and slapped herself across the left forearm. Hard. The sound cracked through the kitchen like a firecracker. I froze. She slapped herself again, same spot, hard enough to leave a red mark blooming across her skin. Then she screamed. Not words. Just a high, sharp scream, the kind you hear in movies when someone's being attacked. My whole body went cold. Tessa, what? She ran. Out of the kitchen, down the hall, still screaming. I heard her stumble on the stairs, heard her voice break into sobs. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the spot where she'd been standing, trying to process what had just happened. Then I heard the front door slam. Mom was home. I walked slowly toward the living room. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My mother was standing in the doorway, purse still on her shoulder, staring at Tessa, who was at the bottom of the stairs, clutching her arm, mascara running down her face. "She pushed me," Tessa sobbed. "She's jealous of me. She said she wishes I didn't exist." My mother's eyes snapped to me. That look, the one that had already decided. "Sloane, I didn't apologize. For what? I didn't touch her." Tessa let out another sob, louder this time. "See? She doesn't even care." My mother's jaw tightened. She looked at Tessa's arm, at the red mark already darkening into a bruise. Then she looked at me like I was a stranger. I saw the mark on her arm. "Well, Sloane, you didn't see what happened before." "I don't need to." Those 4 words. I don't need to. Like my entire version of events was irrelevant before I even gave it. Like 17 years of Tessa's lies didn't matter, because this time there was a mark. "Mom, please!" "I'm done, Sloane." Her voice was quiet, controlled, deadly. "I am done choosing between you two. I am done with your jealousy. I am done with your drama. If you can't love your sister, you can leave." The ultimatum. "Mom, get your things. Now." I looked at Tessa. She was staring at the floor, shoulders shaking, the picture of wounded innocence. And in that moment, I saw her clearly. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. She'd invited me over specifically for this. She'd engineered the conversation, the accusation, the slap, the scream, the tears. All of it. And my mother had walked in right on cue. "I'm calling you out for coming home early," I said quietly. "Book club ends at 9. It's 8:15. My mother's face didn't change. "Tessa texted me. She said she was worried about you, that you'd been acting strange." I looked at Tessa again. She met my eyes for just a second, and I saw it. The smallest flicker of a smile. She'd been planning this all day. I went upstairs, grabbed my overnight bag from the hall closet. I kept one there for the nights I'd stay over after helping Mom with things, and shoved in some clothes from my old bedroom. I didn't take much. I just wanted out. When I came back downstairs, Tessa was in the kitchen with ice on her arm. Mom was standing at the front door, arms crossed. "I need you to understand something," I said. My voice was shaking, but I kept it steady. I didn't touch her. I didn't say any of those things. And somewhere in your heart, Mom, you know that." "Don't," my mother said. "Don't you dare make this about me. It's always been about you, about keeping her happy, about keeping the peace. I've spent my whole life being the one who gives in, and it's never enough." "You're being dramatic." There it was, the word she always used. Dramatic. Like my feelings were a performance instead of a response to being erased. "I'm leaving," I said. "And I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do." I walked past her onto the porch. It was cold, late March, but winter was still hanging on. I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and I didn't have shoes on. I'd kicked them off in the kitchen when I arrived. I turned back. "Can I at least get my—" The door slammed in my face so hard the decorative wreath fell off and clattered onto the concrete. Inside, I could hear Tessa crying. Too loud, too perfect, the kind of crying that's meant to be heard. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the closed door. My breath came out in clouds. My feet were already numb. I knocked once. "Mom, please, just let me explain." The door cracked open just enough for her face to appear. I saw the mark on her arm. "You didn't see what happened before." "I don't need to." The door shut again. I sat down on my suitcase. My hands were shaking. Not from cold, from rage, from disbelief, from the sharp, clean realization that my mother had just chosen Tessa's lie over my truth without a single question. I sat there for 20 minutes. No one came back out. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Tessa. "You should have kept your mouth shut." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about the engagement, or jealousy, or any of the things she'd accused me of. This was intentional. She wanted me out, and she'd found the perfect way to do it. I stared at the text until my vision blurred. Then a voice called from across the street. "Hey!" I looked up. Standing at the edge of his driveway was Merritt Caldwell. Mid-60s, retired postal worker, lived alone since his wife died 4 years ago. He was wearing a cardigan and holding a watering can. His porch light was on. "I don't usually interfere in family business," he said slowly, walking toward me. "But that wasn't what happened." My heart stopped. "What?" He gestured toward his house, toward the open window on the second floor. I was watering my plants. Window was open. I heard your sister." I couldn't breathe. "She said she was going to teach you a lesson." Then I heard a slap. Then I heard her scream. He paused, looked uncomfortable. "She slapped her own arm, didn't she?" I stood up, legs unsteady. "You heard that?" I heard all of it. The world tilted. For 17 years, I'd been the only witness to Tessa's lies, the only person who knew the truth. And every time, it was her word against mine, her tears against my anger. And my mother always chose her. But this time, someone else had heard it. "Mr. Caldwell?" "Merritt," he corrected gently. "Merritt." My voice broke. "I don't know what to say." He set the watering can down on the sidewalk. "I also need to tell you something else. I have security cameras. They cover my front yard, the street, my part of your mother's driveway, and they record audio within about 30 feet. My pulse spiked. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying I have a recording. Of the whole thing. Your conversation in the kitchen, the slap, the scream, all of it." I felt like I was going to pass out. "Can I see it?" He nodded toward his house. "Come on." I followed him across the street, barefoot, suitcase in hand, feeling like I was in a dream. His house was small and neat. Floral wallpaper, family photos on the mantel, the faint smell of coffee and old books. He led me into a small office off the living room. There was a computer on a desk, 2 monitors, a shelf full of binders labeled by year. "I installed the cameras after my house got broken into 2 years ago," he explained. "Police told me to get a system that records audio too. Most people don't know. But it's legal in this state as long as the cameras are on your own property." He sat down, pulled up the footage, scrolled to 7:45 p.m. There it was. Black and white, slightly grainy, but clear enough. The camera faced the street, but it had a wide angle that caught part of my mother's kitchen window. You couldn't see us clearly, but you could hear everything. Merritt turned up the volume. Tessa's voice, tinny through the speakers. "Mom said you've been kind of bitter lately." My voice. "Bitter about what?" "About me. About the engagement. She said you made a weird toast at the announcement party." Every word, every accusation. Then my laugh, sharp and disbelieving. Then the slap. The sound was unmistakable. A flat, meaty crack. Then Tessa's scream. Then her voice, distant now, yelling, "She pushed me! She's jealous of me! She said she wishes I didn't exist." I sat frozen, staring at the screen. Merritt paused the playback. "I can give you a copy. USB drive, cloud upload, whatever you need." I looked at him. This kind, quiet man, who barely spoke to anyone on the street, who kept to himself, who had no reason to get involved. "Why are you helping me?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My daughter used to do the same thing. Lie, manipulate, play victim. For years, my wife and I believed her. We punished our son for things he didn't do. We chose her side every time." He looked down at his hands. "When my son was 23, he stopped talking to us, said he was done being the scapegoat. We didn't understand. We thought he was being dramatic." His voice cracked slightly. 2 years later, my daughter admitted she'd been lying. About everything. For years. She thought it was funny. I felt my throat close. My son forgave us eventually, but it took 6 years. 6 years we lost because we didn't listen. Merritt looked at me. I'm not going to watch that happen to someone else. Not when I have proof. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. Thank you. He copied the footage onto a USB drive and handed it to me. What are you going to do with it? I looked at the small black drive in my palm. Evidence. Proof. The thing I'd needed my entire life. I don't know yet. He nodded. If you need me to verify it's real, I will. Police-grade timestamp, metadata, all of it. It'll hold up. I stood up, clutched the drive like it was a lifeline. Can I stay here tonight? I don't have anywhere else to go. Guest room's upstairs, he said. Clean sheets, towels in the closet. Stay as long as you need. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in Merritt's guest room, my laptop open, watching the footage over and over again. Every replay was a small vindication, a tiny piece of my sanity restored. But I also knew something else. If I showed this to my mother right now, she'd find a way to dismiss it. She'd say the audio was unclear. She'd say I provoked Tessa. She'd say something, anything, to avoid admitting she was wrong. My mother didn't respond to evidence. She responded to image, to what other people thought, to the carefully curated narrative she'd built her whole life around. If I wanted her to see the truth, I needed to make it impossible to ignore. And I knew exactly where to do it. The engagement dinner, tomorrow night, 30 witnesses, all the people my mother wanted to impress. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was just going to show them what really happened, and let the truth do the rest. If you're still with me, and you want to know what happens at that dinner, drop a comment. Tell me, would you show the footage or walk away? Because what I did next changed everything. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. This is just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up in Merritt's guest room at 6 a.m. to 17 missed calls from my mother. No voicemails, just calls. I didn't call her back. Instead, I got dressed in the same clothes from yesterday, brushed my teeth with a spare toothbrush Merritt left on the bathroom counter, and went downstairs. He was already in the kitchen making coffee. Morning, he said. Sleep okay? Not really. He poured me a cup without asking. We sat at his small kitchen table in silence for a few minutes. Then he said, You're going to the party tonight, aren't you? I nodded. You sure that's a good idea? Probably not, but I'm doing it anyway. He studied me for a long moment. You remind me of my son. Stubborn, but in the right way. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet, he said. Wait until you see how this plays out. I spent the day preparing. I went to my apartment, showered, changed into a simple navy dress. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed, I'm here to cause drama. I wanted to look calm, composed, like someone who had nothing to hide. I connected my phone to my laptop and made sure the video file transferred correctly. I tested it 3 times. I checked the timestamp, the audio quality, the clarity. Everything was perfect. Then I sat on my couch and stared at the wall. What I was about to do would detonate my family. There was no going back from this. Once I showed that footage in front of 30 people, the story my mother had been telling for years, about me being difficult, jealous, dramatic, would collapse. But so would the illusion she'd built her whole life around, the perfect daughters, the happy family, the blessed mother. I wasn't doing this to hurt her. I need you to understand that. I was doing it because I was done being erased. I was done carrying the blame for someone else's lies. And I was done letting Tessa weaponize my mother's love against me. If she wanted a performance, I'd give her one. With subtitles. At 6:45 p.m., I pulled up to my mother's house. The driveway was already full. Cars lined the street. I could see people through the windows, hear laughter, the clinking of glasses. I sat in my car for a full minute, hands on the steering wheel, breathing. Then I grabbed my purse, checked that the USB drive was inside, and walked to the front door. I didn't knock, I just walked in. The living room went quiet. 30 faces turned toward me. My mother froze mid-laugh, wine glass halfway to her mouth. Tessa was standing by the fireplace, Dashiell's arm around her waist. Her smile faltered when she saw me. "Sloan," my mother said slowly. Her voice was carefully controlled. "I didn't think you were coming." "I wasn't going to," I said calmly, but then I realized I had something important to share. Tessa's grip tightened on Dashiell's hand. I saw her knuckles go white. My mother set her wine glass down on the mantel. "Chill, this isn't the time." "Actually," I said, "this is exactly the time." I walked further into the room. People stepped aside to let me through. Some of them I recognized, family friends, neighbors, people from Mom's church. Others I didn't know, probably Dashiell's side. Mom's friend Wren, a woman who'd known me since I was 7, touched my arm gently. "Honey, are you okay? Your mom said you moved out." "I was kicked out," I corrected. "There's a difference." Wren blinked. My mother's face went tight. "Sloan, if you're here to make a scene—" "I'm not," I said. "I'm here to correct the record." Tessa stepped forward. "Maybe we should talk about this privately." "Why?" I asked. "You didn't seem to care about privacy when you lied in front of Mom." The room shifted. Uncomfortable glances. Dashiell looked confused. My mother forced a smile. "Everyone, I'm so sorry. Family matters. You know how it is." She gestured toward the kitchen. "Sloan, let's talk in private." "No." The smile cracked slightly. "Excuse me?" I said no. "If you want me to leave, you'll have to kick me out again, in front of everyone." Silence. Someone coughed. My mother's friend Ingrid whispered something to her husband. Mom's face was turning red. Not from anger, from embarrassment. Because this wasn't part of the script. This wasn't the narrative she'd prepared. "Fine," she said tightly. "Say what you need to say." I looked around the room. Most of you know that my mom kicked me out 2 nights ago. What you probably don't know is why. Tessa stepped forward again. "Sloan, don't." Tessa told my mother that I pushed her, that I said I wished she didn't exist, that I hurt her out of jealousy. Dashiell looked at Tessa. "Wait, what?" Tessa's eyes were wide, innocent, wounded. "She did. Look." She held up her arm. The bruise was still there, purple and ugly. "She grabbed me." I nodded slowly. "That's a bad bruise. Looks like it hurt." "It did." "I bet. Especially since you hit yourself." The room inhaled sharply. Tessa's face went pale. "That's insane." "Is it?" I pulled out my phone. "Because I have video." My mother moved forward. "This is ridiculous." From Merritt Caldwell's security camera, time-stamped, police-grade, with audio. Merritt, who I'd asked to attend, and who was standing quietly in the corner, raised his hand slightly. "That's correct." Everyone turned to look at him. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. "Merritt, you're part of this?" "I'm a witness," he said simply. Nothing more. I walked over to the TV, pulled out the USB drive. "Can I use this?" No one answered. I took that as permission. The TV was already on, set to a slideshow of photos. Tessa and Dashiell at the beach. Tessa and Dashiell at a restaurant. Tessa and Dashiell kissing under a sunset. I stopped the slideshow, plugged in the drive, and pulled up the video file. "Sloan, stop," Tessa said. Her voice was shaking now. "You're going to ruin everything." "You already did that." I pressed play. The footage filled the screen. Black and white, grainy, but unmistakable. You couldn't see faces clearly, but you could hear everything. "Mom said you've been kind of bitter lately." "Bitter about what?" "About me, about the engagement." The room was silent except for the audio. People were leaning in, listening. Then Tessa's voice. High, cruel, and precise. "Mom told me last week that you're still single because you're difficult, that men can sense it." My mother's hand went to her mouth. Then my laugh. The slap. The scream. Tessa's voice yelling about being pushed. It was all there, every second, undeniable. When the video ended, no one moved. Someone in the back dropped their wine glass. It shattered on the hardwood floor. Tessa's face was white. She turned to Dashiell. "That's edited. It has to be." Merritt stepped forward. "It's not. I can provide the metadata, the original files, the system logs, everything you need to verify it's authentic." Dashiell stared at Tessa like he'd never seen her before. "You hit yourself?" "No, She looked around wildly. "She's lying." "The video doesn't lie," I said quietly. Tessa turned on my mother. "Mom, you always take her side when people are watching." The room went completely still. My mother blinked. "What?" "This is your fault." Tessa's voice was rising now, losing control. "You're the one who told me I had to be perfect. You're the one who said Sloan was jealous. You said I needed to protect myself." Oh. This wasn't just about me. This was about years of my mother pitting us against each other. Years of her telling Tessa she was the golden child, and me, I was the problem. Years of her creating a dynamic where Tessa felt like she had to perform to keep her spot. And Tessa had just said it. Out loud, in front of everyone. My mother looked around the room. 30 faces staring at her, judging her, seeing through the perfect mother act for the first time. "Tessa, that's not—" "You told me she was bitter." Tessa was crying now. Real tears. Messy, ugly, uncontrolled. "You told me to be careful around her. You said she'd try to ruin my happiness." Dashiell took a step back, away from Tessa. "How many times have you done this?" Tessa spun toward him. "What?" "Lied. How many times?" She opened her mouth, closed it. He looked down at her arm, at the bruise. "No one makes that mark from pushing, but you'd make it from hitting yourself. Hard." His voice was quiet, calm, but there was something final in it. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the engagement ring he'd been wearing on a chain around his neck. He'd taken it off her finger weeks ago to get it resized, and set it carefully on the mantel. "I can't marry someone who does this." "Dashiell, please." "I'm sorry," he said, and he walked out. Just like that. The front door closed behind him. The room was still silent. Tessa looked at me. Her face was streaked with mascara, her expression somewhere between rage and desperation. "You ruined my life." "No," I said. "You did." She let out a sound that was half sob, half scream, and ran upstairs. Her bedroom door slammed so hard the walls shook. No one knew what to say. My mother stood in the center of the room, surrounded by her guests, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Finally, Wren spoke. "Petra, I think we should go." "No? We'll call you tomorrow." Wren's voice was gentle but firm. She touched my mother's shoulder, then headed for the door. Others followed. Quiet goodbyes, awkward hugs, people avoiding eye contact. Within 10 minutes, the room was empty except for me, my mother, and Merritt, who was quietly collecting his coat from the closet. "Thank you for coming," I told him. He nodded. "You did the right thing." After he left, it was just the two of us. My mother stood by the fireplace, staring at the ring Dashiell had left behind. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "Why did you do that?" she asked quietly. "Because you didn't believe me." She stopped, swallowed. "Why would you humiliate us like that?" "I didn't humiliate you. I corrected the record." She turned to me. "Everyone saw." "Good. Maybe now they'll stop believing your version." Her face crumpled. Not dramatically, just slowly, like a wall collapsing. I didn't know she was lying. "Yes, you did." She looked at me sharply. "You knew," I said. "Maybe not about this specific time, but you've known for years that Tessa exaggerates, that she manipulates, that she plays victim. Well, you just chose to believe her anyway because it was easier than dealing with the truth." My mother sat down heavily on the couch. "She's my baby. And I'm your daughter, too." Silence. "I knew she exaggerated sometimes," Mom admitted quietly. But I never thought— She stopped. I never thought she'd go this far. She went this far because you let her. Every time you believed her over me, you taught her that lying works. My mother put her face in her hands. I stood there, waiting for an apology, waiting for her to say she was wrong, waiting for something, but she just sat there, crying quietly into her palms. And I realized something. She wasn't crying because she felt guilty. She was crying because her image was ruined, because 30 people had just seen behind the curtain. I'm not coming home, I said. She looked up. What? I'm not moving back. I'm not pretending this didn't happen. I'm not going back to being the scapegoat. Sloan, you're my daughter. Then act like it. For once in my life, act like I matter as much as she does. Her mouth opened, closed. I walked to the door. Where are you going? Somewhere I'm not disposable. I left. The door closed behind me with a quiet click. At 2:37 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. You ruined my life. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back. No. You did. I blocked her number. Then I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to 43 missed calls. My mother, mostly. A few from numbers I didn't recognize. 2 from my Aunt Larkin, my mom's sister. I listened to Larkin's voicemail. Sloan, honey, it's Aunt Larkin. I heard what happened. I just want you to know, I believe you. I always thought something was off with how your mom talked about you. Call me when you're ready. I love you. I saved the message. Over the next week, things moved fast. My mother called every day. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that started apologetic and ended defensive. I know I made mistakes, but you didn't have to humiliate me in front of everyone. I'm trying to understand, but you have to see this from my perspective. Tessa is devastated. Don't you care about your sister? On day 5, I texted her back. I'll talk to you when you're ready to take accountability. Not before. She didn't respond. Tessa moved out of Mom's house. I heard through Aunt Larkin that she was staying with a friend. The engagement was officially over. Dashiell had changed his relationship status on Facebook to single and blocked Tessa on everything. People were talking. The story had spread through the church, through the neighborhood, through my mother's entire social circle. And for the first time, the story wasn't, Sloan is difficult. It was, did you hear what Tessa did? My mother resigned from the neighborhood association. She posted on Facebook that she was stepping back to focus on family. The comments were full of supportive messages, but I could read between the lines. People knew. Ren called me. Your mother is a good woman, Sloan, but she's been living in denial for a long time. I think this was a wake-up call she needed. Maybe, I said. Give her time. She'll come around. I wasn't sure I believed that, but I appreciated Ren saying it. 3 weeks after the dinner, Merritt came over to my apartment with a casserole. My wife's recipe, he said. Thought you might need a home-cooked meal. We ate together at my small kitchen table. He told me about his son, about the years they'd lost, about how they'd rebuilt their relationship slowly. It took honesty, he said. Real honesty. Not the kind where you apologize to make someone feel better. The kind where you admit you were wrong and you mean it. Do you think my mom will ever get there? He shrugged. Some people do, some people don't. But that's her choice, not yours. That night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Sloan? It was Tessa. I almost hung up, but her voice sounded different, smaller, less performative. What do you want? She stopped. I heard her breathing, shaky, uneven. Can I see you? Why? I need to talk to you, in person, please. I should have said no, but I didn't. Where? The coffee shop on Main, tomorrow at noon. I hung up without answering, but the next day I went. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner booth, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I sat down across from her. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then she said, "I'm sorry." I waited. "I've been lying for so long I don't even know when it started. Her voice cracked. "I just knew that if I cried, Mom would fix it. And then it became a habit. And then it became who I was." "That's not an excuse." "I know." She looked down at her hands. "I don't have an excuse. I was cruel. I was selfish. I hurt you over and over again because it was easier than dealing with my own shit." I'd never heard Tessa talk like this, without the performance, without the mask. "Why now?" I asked. "Why apologize now?" "Because I lost everything. Dashiell's gone. Mom barely talks to me. Everyone at church looks at me like I'm a monster. And I realized—" She stopped, wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I realized that the only person I have left is you, and I don't deserve you. But I'm asking anyway." I sat back in my chair. "What are you asking for?" "A chance. Not to go back to how things were. I don't want that either. But a chance to build something real, something honest." I studied her face, looking for the lie, looking for the angle. I didn't see one. "Therapy first," I said. She nodded. "I already started, last week." That surprised me. "I'm not saying I forgive you," I continued. "I'm not saying we're sisters again just because you apologized. You broke my trust for 17 years. That doesn't get fixed in one conversation. I know. But if you're serious about changing, I'm willing to see it. From a distance." She nodded again. "That's more than I deserve." We sat in silence for a few more minutes. Then she stood up to leave. "Sloan?" "Yeah?" "I'm really sorry about everything. I heard you the first time." She almost smiled. Then she left. I sat there for a long time after she was gone, staring at my untouched coffee, trying to figure out how I felt. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever. But it was something, a crack in the wall, a possibility. 3 months after the engagement dinner, my mother called me. Not to apologize, not to explain. Just to ask if I wanted to come to brunch. "Just the two of us," she said. "Neutral ground. There's a place on Oak Street." I almost said no, but I didn't. The restaurant was small, quiet, the kind of place with cloth napkins and fresh flowers on every table. My mother was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window, hands folded in her lap. She looked different, older, softer maybe, or just tired. I sat down across from her. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I was wrong." I blinked. "What?" "I was wrong. About Tessa, about you, about all of it." She looked me in the eyes. "I chose her over you because I thought she needed me more, because she was louder, because her pain looked more urgent. And I told myself that you were strong enough to handle being second. But that was a lie I told myself, so I didn't have to face what I was doing." My throat tightened. "I thought if I just loved her enough, she'd be okay. And I thought you'd always be there, that you'd always forgive me, that you'd always come back." She stopped. "But you didn't, and I don't blame you." I didn't know what to say. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she continued. "I'm just asking you to hear me. I was a bad mother to you. I let Tessa hurt you. I let her get away with things I knew were wrong, and I'm sorry." The words I'd waited 17 years to hear. They didn't fix anything, but they mattered. "Thank you," I said quietly. We ordered food, we talked. Not about Tessa, not about the past. Just small things. My job, her garden, the weather. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. It was a start. A year later, things looked different. My mother and I had brunch once a month, sometimes more. We talked on the phone every week. The conversations were careful, honest, real. Tessa and I texted occasionally. She was still in therapy. She'd gotten a job at a nonprofit, stopped posting on social media, started painting. She sent me pictures of her work sometimes. I told her when I liked them. We weren't close. Maybe we never would be. But we were trying. My mother never went back to the neighborhood association. She volunteered at a food bank instead. She stopped posting on Facebook. She started listening more than she talked. One night, she called me and said, "I'm proud of you." For what? For not letting me make you small. I cried after we hung up. Merritt and I had dinner once a month. He told me stories about his wife, his son, his long career delivering mail. He said I reminded him of his daughter-in-law, strong, stubborn, good. He was the closest thing I had to a father. On the anniversary of the night I got kicked out, I drove to my mother's house. Not to confront her, not to relive it, just to stand outside and remember. The wreath was still on the door, a new one, but the same style. I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago, barefoot, shaking, alone. And I thought about the woman I was now, whole, steady, seen. I didn't knock. I just stood there for a minute, then got back in my car and drove home, to my apartment, my space, the life I'd built when my mother's house stopped being home. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt free. If you're still here, if you made it all the way to the end, thank you. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the scapegoat, if you've ever been blamed for someone else's lies, if you've ever had to choose between your truth and your family, I want you to know something. Walking away doesn't make you the villain. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. And refusing to carry someone else's guilt doesn't make you cruel. You deserve to be believed. You deserve to be heard. You deserve a seat at the table, not the one they give you when it's convenient, the one you build for yourself. My name is Sloan Merrick. I'm 29 years old. I'm a high school English teacher. I have an apartment with terrible water pressure and a neighbor who became my family. This was my story, and I'm not the villain anymore. Drop a comment if this hit home. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to prove your truth to people who didn't want to see it, you're not alone. Subscribe if you haven't already. I see you.